Okay, so chapter 2.
वो चला गया मेरा ये ऊपर से आ जाएगा नीचे इसको भी कैसे
इसीलिए तो बोल रहा था नीचे रखते हैं ये क्या हो
नहीं मेरा that thing hangs on top this thing बस हो गया तो अब छोड़ दीजिए भाई
इससे करो ना ये इसको ये ऐसे ऐसे सब so what it's saying is that all unhappiness is due to our ego basically.
Before the moment of birth and before our ambition phase kicks in, each of us is completely aligned with God or the Tao or whatever name we choose to call the source of our being. In that pre-formed stage of fromness, ambition isn't something we entertain. We have no goals, no aspirations. There's nothing we have to do or take care of. No one to impress or defeat. All we need to do is just be.
So now when a baby is born, a baby does not need to prove anything to anyone. It's in its own world. It is enjoying itself. It is in the moment all the time. It is doing whatever it wants to do, however it wants to do. When it's feeling hungry, it'll cry and ask for food. When it wants to sleep, he'll go to sleep. He's not bothered about looking good. He's just all about being. So when he says over here, before the moment of birth and before our ambition phase kicks in, each of us is completely aligned with God. So we are all powerful at that point in time.
In that pre-formed stage of fromness, ambition isn't something we entertain. We have no goals, no aspirations. There's nothing we have to do to take care of, no one to impress or defeat. All we need to do is just be. Our existence in the experience of from is precisely what our source of being intended. Free of interference, we are our authentic self. At that stage, we are as much like God as most of us have ever been since.
Okay, so over there that's why they say, in the first 6 years of our life, we are totally aligned and totally connected. Why? Because we are not deterred, we are not influenced by belief systems, etc. That starts later on. Nowadays, of course, because children are being exposed to too much before their time, as we read in Magical Child, people are getting screened from a very, very small age. You're making a child read A, B, C, D and going into the abstract before they've actually crossed that time when they can transit from the physical to the abstract. Okay, so naturally there is a lot of issues going on now, but at that point in time, in the first few years, we are very much like God. We are totally aligned in the now.
In the movie version of The Shift, I describe how we move away from our authentic self, our divinity, and adopt a false one. We come into this world a perfect creation, but for many reasons we are encouraged to leave this authentic self behind and to take on a false one.
So now the authentic self is authentic, but because we are educated in a particular way, we are made to follow certain belief systems, which is not all encompassing. When we are a baby, we love everyone. There is no distinction between us, between one thing and the other thing. We just care for everything. We love everything. You understand? The distinctions start to come later, which is the false one.
We and those responsible for our parenting often disregard that our destiny and all we need to fulfill our dharma is built into us.
So now again over here, what is being said, at least in the Gita also, is that whatever we need to grow in this present moment is with us. The point is that we are not really sure about it, and we are constantly looking outside to develop that ability to do whatever is the universe is showing up for us. Plus we are constantly going into resistance. No, can't, won't do it. Okay, so we are going out of what we are meant to be doing. Just 1 second. Can I request you, someone is annotating, not to annotate? Okay.
With good intentions, we are seduced into becoming a self that is diametrically opposed to who we are authentically.
So now, when we are looking at oneness, when we are looking at wholeness, we care for everyone. You will find children who are not squeamed. They will always go and love each other. They'll care for each other. They'll hand over stuff to each other. The selfishness comes later on. When we start becoming selfish, we create a problem for ourselves. Okay, and we that the selfish self is not our true self. Why? Because we are part of that Godhead. So even in the Gita they say, Ham Aham Brahmasmi, right? So we are a part of that Godhead. Now, if we are a part of that Godhead, and the Godhead is everyone around us is also a part of that Godhead. So everyone is a part of us. So technically, we should always be operating in wholeness. But when we come into that selfish thing that we have developed for ourselves, it is totally diametrically opposite from what we are meant to be.
The nature of our false self. Imagine a creature proceeding through its developmental journey in form here on earth, learning and believing that it is something other than what it came here to be. Take, for example, a baby hyena who's told by parental figures that he really isn't a hyena. This baby hyena is forbidden to follow his natural inclinations to frolic, sharpen his teeth, stalk prey, run with the pack, hunt in a group, make noise, or chew the carcasses of animals he's killed. Instead, the young hyena's parents have told him to stop all of the weird behavior like laughing and howling and to sit still while the other hyenas hunt. In other words, to believe that he's something he's not.
So now see, this is happening a lot in the corporate world and in our day-to-day life also. We keep putting square pegs into round holes. Okay. Now, if I have a propensity to do something, then if I do that, I will always be better in doing that than doing something else. So being able to assess your propensity or what is your aptitude and amplitude becomes extremely important. And when we can align with what we are meant to be doing over here, automatically we start functioning with ease. What I found was we did that fingerprint thing. There was a talk on that demo. Uh, it's not called demographics. It's called demo something. And I found that that process is pretty accurate on pointing you to the field that you would be suited to. It's all in the fingerprints. Okay, again, the fingerprints, as in the microcosm, so in the macrocosm, as in the macrocosm, so in the microcosm. So each part of our body can actually tell us what we are all about. So you have face reading, you have palm reading, you have fingerprint reading, you have foot reading. I have a book which talks about your toes. The way your toes are, it can predict what you are. So the way, then you have this in the scalp, they shave your hair off, and using the scalps and the bumps in your scalp, they can tell you about you. Okay, so there are so many ways of telling people about them, about themselves. Now, if we can get to our deeper state of consciousness and actually understand what we are meant to do, that is the time when we will be happy. You will find that so many people are unhappy today doing what they are doing. The other thing is that what we saw in the movie Three Idiots, the parents were forcing the children to do something because they wanted to fulfill their ambition through the children. Now that again becomes a huge problem today. Okay, you're making someone do something that they are not in the propensity to do. So that's what this hyena story is all about.
The point is that everything that's part of creation has a dharma. No animal, bird, insect, fish, or plant can cultivate a false self or believe that it's something other than what the creative source intended. There's still no evidence to doubt what Emerson once noted in his journal. All the thoughts of a turtle are turtle. Emerson was making the same point that I am here, that all of God's creatures are authentic and can only be what their dharma intended them to be. Are human beings an exception to God's intention? Some aspects of our development pose that question.
Okay, so now we can only be what we are. This creating a false image of ourselves. Okay, it's like an actor goes on stage. Now, if you're not being yourself, it will always take more effort. But if you're being yourself, it will be effortless. Okay, so if you're looking at even the 4 S's, what are the 4 S's? It should come spontaneously into your life, Swata. It must be easy for you to do. It is the right thing to do. It's the shresht thing to do for the higher good, and you must accept it. Okay, now the point comes over here that the moment all these points are met, you will find you will be operating from your authentic self. Whenever any of these 4 are violated, you're not operating from your authentic self.
We then continue to unfold as creation determined, in the same way we did in those first 9 months inside our mother's womb. Following that developmental time, we were greeted by parents, a culture, and a host of well meaning folks, representing religious, educational, and commercial interests. They held us, admired the miracle of creation, and looked heavenward, saying, "Great work, God, absolutely amazingly perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But now we'll take over from here." Thus began our shift to the bizarre, twisted world of ambition.
So now during your conception and during the 9 months that you are in your mother's stomach, okay, who is guiding that process? There is some other field which is guiding that process, and that process is absolutely perfect. You'll find 99.99% children are born perfect. Okay, how does that happen? So there is an energy which is working behind the scenes, and we with our limited consciousness think that we can circumvent and supersede that consciousness, and that is where all the problems start arising. Okay, the individualization of the child, that my child is the best, my child will do this ego as well as the ambition starts to kick in as soon as we are out of the mother's womb.
We received metaphorical training wheels and became trainees in the vigorous effort to convince ourselves that we are not a part of divine consciousness. In the shift to become part of the world of ambition, we learned to aspire to something totally alien to our fromness. This path required us to re identify ourselves in ways that no hyena or turtle would ever imagine doing.
So in the animal kingdom, there is no falsity. You are what you are. But in human beings, we create a facade all the time. We are trying to create a front. So we are thinking something, we are saying something else. We are doing something, but we want to do something else. This constant rigmarole is constantly taking place.
The shift to ambition requires human to cultivate an ego, to edge God out. We are trained to believe that who we truly are is whatever our ego convinces us is our true self. We spend more than half of our life on average believing in and relying on the training we underwent concerning the importance of having ambition.
Okay, so now what is happening? If today you take any spiritual person, okay, a truly spiritual person will be devoid of ambition. They will just be. Whatever is happening for the best. We are not interested in anything else happening. They put whatever they have to put out, and they, again, if you go back to the 4 agreements, they will be impeccable with their word. They will not take things personally. They will not make any assumptions, and they will always do their best. Okay. Now, if you look at that from the spiritual angle, when you are looking at a normal person, they will not be, if you are ambitious, right? You've got to lie to move ahead. You have to step on someone else to move ahead. You will always make assumptions. Okay. And you will try to make shortcuts when you're going into ambition. And when you are selfish, that is the time when you will do all these things. But if you are holistic and you want to take everyone with you, you want everyone who's around you to grow with you, to be on the journey, to be on the path with you, then selfishness goes into the dustbin. You become more holistic and you want to grow and grow with everyone around you.
The next big shift is when we realize that a false self only offers empty promises and a guarantee of self recrimination and futility, which will be discussed in the next 2 chapters.
So as soon as we realize, when we shift, like what are we doing right now? We are understanding things. We are trying to assess things. We are trying to come back to our authentic selves. As I was mentioning, we were consciously there. Now we are here. And what are we wanting to do? We want to expand this so that when we come back here, we are more in tune with what we are actually are.
For now, let's look at what that false self teaches us as we traverse the path of ego and learn to believe in the importance of ambition as a way of defining who we are.
Okay, so ego and ambition, they go hand in hand.
Taking on an ego. As we emerge from the world of spirit at the moment of birth, we begin the perilous journey of acquiring an identity that's virtually the opposite of our true self. I call this development of the ego or the false self the ambition period. It's a sharp contrast to our fromness, where ambition was unknown largely because we simply allowed ourselves to be lived by the great Tao.
Okay, so as soon as you have ambition, you are having duality coming into the field. So ambition will automatically bring duality because I need to go above the other guy. So I am going
Sound.
to
It's
differentiate.
breaking. It's breaking.
It's breaking up.
Yeah, yeah.
Oops. Wait. Hang on. इसको बंद करो ना.
इसमें तो है ही नहीं कोई भी.
Oops.
You can see your hands moving and all properly.
Yeah, 1 second.
And now it's clear.
Now it's clean.
Yeah.
Okay. ठीक है.
Hmm.
चलिए.
Thus begins the journey from being nobody and feeling content with our nobody status to being immersed in a curriculum that my friend Ram Das calls somebody training. Ego insists that we traverse from nothing to something, from being no one to being someone, from oneness to two-ness, from unity to separation.
So what is this talking about? It is talking about duality. So instead of being in oneness and considering everything to be a part of me, I have to create a distinction. Whenever ego is there, duality always has to come into play.
It is this journey that requires us to edge God out and learn to believe in a false self. Ego's number one job at this stage is eliminating our nobody status by encouraging ambition and creating a new, albeit false, identity.
So again, ego creates that false identity, that I-ness which starts coming, which is actually not your true self. Your deeper self is connected to the whole. It is a part of the whole. But that I-ness separates you from the whole.
The quotation that opens this chapter introduces us to the ego as the cause of our troubles. If we want to know pure happiness and live a blissful life, we need to do it as Sri Ramana Maharshi says, and learn to scorch ego by ignoring it. But ego is adept at resisting our efforts to ignore it, and it will do everything it can to prevent us from sacrificing our somebody status. Ego wants us to be a somebody who is more important than the other somebodies.
So again, it's the crab mentality, pulling the other down to go up, or stepping on someone's head to go up. Okay. Now, always when we are working in cooperation, when we are working as a team, productivity will always be higher. But when I want to become the supreme, I want to be better than the other guy, then we automatically create problems for everyone around us. Okay, so the ego automatically creates issues and problems for us.
I've isolated 6 components of the ego. The false self. They are what our ego tells us to convince us that we are something other than the nobody we might have remained. Beginning with infancy and throughout our somebody training, we learn to believe in them. Here is a thorough explanation of each of the 6 lies that the ego wants us to believe.
Okay, so let's go with the 6 slides.
Number 1, who I am is what I have. Early on, we get the message that having nothing is the equivalent of being a human, being without any value as a person. As we grow into this component of ego identification, we learn that the more stuff we accumulate, the more important we are.
So this is a totally materialistic attitude. Okay, what I look at is that having is not important. When I need it to have it is more important, in my view.
Our self-concept shifts from feeling that we are valuable because we exist as a piece of God to assessing our worthiness on the basis of how many toys we own, their monetary worth, and how prestigious they are assumed to be by other somebodies in our culture.
So again, you're putting your happiness in the other person's hand, because to be happy, what is it that you really require? Okay, most of the stuff that we accumulate around ourselves, we don't really need, but we keep accumulating to look good in the eyes of the other person.
In the movie of The Shift, a well-to-do couple who owns many lavish toys and flaunt their cars, clothes, homes, and country club memberships evaluates their success in life on the basis of their extensive inventory of possessions. Yet, it is clear that they have an equally disproportionate sense of their own selves. The more stuff they accumulate, the more they have to worry about, which results in chasing after more stuff. And on the merry-go-round goes. This finally culminates in a very poignant moment in the film in which the husband begins to wonder if his whole life has been wrong.
So now what is happening? Most of us have got into a pattern. Every day we are doing the same thing. 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 And we really don't know where we are going. It's all in the process of accumulation. मूछ का लड़ाई है कि मेरे पास इतना है, मेरे पास इतना है. The moment you take a stop and actually look at what is happening in your life is when the transition and the shifts will start coming in your life. Now, the COVID situation in one way is a huge blessing because it's made people actually look at their own lives. They've made people realize that what they can do without in their lives. You're wanting something and you think that you can't do without it, but under COVID, you've had to do without it and you've managed beautifully. So you have come, all of us, I'm saying that this is a huge opportunity for us to actually look within as to what is important and what is not important in our lives.
It's a compelling question to consider. What if we spent our entire life chasing after the symbols of success, collecting more, and always striving to get something bigger and better than our neighbors? The mantra of the ego is more. It seems to scream out at us from deep within. You'll be happy once you win something else, something more expensive, something that will give you prestige and power.
So again, we are constantly wanting more, okay? Rather than being satisfied with what we have, enjoy what we have, we are constantly looking at what we don't have. So when we are not looking at what we are not grateful for what we have, we will never be happy for what we want. The simple reason is we have to operate out of gratitude for what we have. It is the foundation of what we will get, but most people are not happy with it. When we go into a house for doing vastu and energy field analysis, there's a frequency that I check, it's 11.50. I call it the happiness quotient. If that frequency is off in any place, thumb rule, I will tell them on their face that you all are not happy. And let me tell you, 99.99% of the time I hit it on the head, because they are actually not happy. They may be living in a palace. Let me tell you, I go to a lot of these multi-billionaire houses also, but when I see the frequencies, what is happening over there, they are not happy with what they have. So then they can never be happy. Okay, gratitude is something that we have to have. And if you're constantly looking at what the neighbor has and what we don't have, how can you be happy? It's impossible.
This accumulation mentality begins with our childhood toys. If we don't recall our own childhood, we can see and hear a portrayal of how it is expressed by today's toddlers. These are my toys. That's mine.
Okay, so the minus, rather than community living and sharing and giving, we start accumulating and wanting authority over the stuff that we have.
When we become adults, our larger and more expensive versions of toys epitomize our success. When these possessions are lost or threatened, we feel that our value as human beings is diminished. The same holds true when someone else has more than we do, or when we can't afford to acquire more stuff.
So, what are we putting value in? We are putting value on what we have externally, not what we have internally. And peace, everyone is looking for happiness and peace. Okay. And you can have that with very little. I used to park my car in Ganesh Chandra Avenue, and every day I used to walk to my office. And there was a group of, I've repeated the story before also, but there was a group of people who used to stay on the footpath, and literally through the years I saw children being born and growing up on the footpath. I could actually recognize them at that time, and let me tell you, they were so happy. They used to sleep on the ground, they used to eat what they got, they used to be playing around all the time, and they were really happy. Compared to some of the other children in rich houses that I see, are constantly hankering after something or the other, not wanting something, wanting to do something they're not able to do, etc., etc. But these guys had literally freedom, and they were laughing and playing with joy all the time, most of the time at least. I'm sure they also had their ups and downs, but most of the time. So the happiness comes from inside, not from acquiring and accumulating things.
The problem that exists with this mindset of evaluating ourselves on the basis of what we've acquired is this: if we are what we have, then when we don't have, we aren't.
So if I'm equating my happiness with what I have, the moment it is taken away, I lose my happiness. In the same way, if you put your happiness in someone else's hand, if someone is praising you, then you are happy. If they are deflating you, you're not happy, then is your happiness in your hand or in their hand? So the idea here is to bring your happiness in your hand. Do what you feel is good. Many times, if with Shimangla I have a issue, I always want to wear comfortable clothes, right? Now, the comfortable clothes may not be very good to the society, but then there's always a you have to play the game between looking good and feeling good. I prefer to feel good rather than look good, but most people want to look good rather than feel good. Okay, so that's the distinction, that twist that you'll have to make in your system, that you want to feel good, not look good.
The ego is a tough taskmaster. As far as it is concerned, our very worth is at stake. Of course, we know that we came here with nothing and we'll take nothing with us when we go. Yet, during our life, Ego manages to imprison us. If we let it, our stuff rules us and determines our value. It's not uncommon for people whose identity depends on ego values to fall into depression and even commit suicide when their stuff is threatened or disappears. One of my favorite lines in the book reminds us that what we gain causes more trouble than what we lose, and that by being content, we'll never be disappointed.
So again, detachment. Again, in the Gita talks, in even in the Shiv Tattva that we are listening right now, everything is talking about detachment. Leave your attachment to things. The more attached you are, the more problem you have. The less attached you are, the less problem you have. And if you are attached, then when you lose it, you have a problem. But if you're not attached and you lose it, there is no problem whatsoever. Okay. So again, I used to have this problem. I'll give you my own example. I used to have a Swiss knife in school, and that was like my favorite possession. I was really attached to it. Okay, and one day it got lost, and I was so depressed the full time, and then it got lost, and then afterwards I got another knife, and when I got that second knife, I said to myself that when I lost that previous knife, I was so depressed. I don't want to get attached to this. And it happened to me 4 or 5 times. I lost that knife. But because I was not attached, let me tell you, it found its way back. I lost it. I couldn't find it. And then after 3 or 4 months, again, I could find it. Okay. And then again, I keep referring to this book, The Secret Life of Inanimate Objects. Everything has its life of its own. If it is meant to be with you, nothing can take it away. And if it is not meant to be with you, whatever effort you may make, it is not going to remain with you. So the less attached we are to things, the happier we are. And let me tell you again, I'm repeating this, whatever we need for our growth at this present moment in time, the universe is providing it for us. The only thing is that we have to have eyes and ears and senses to be able to sense it and to accept it, that this is what is, and then move forward. Then we'll never be disappointed.
This kind of thinking doesn't sit well with the ego because it's the part of us that believes our very essence is tied in with what we have, and there can be no contentment when our stuff is taken away. This is why so many people who strive for more and more feel discontent and anguished, and ultimately view themselves as failures when their inventory of stuff is diminished in any way.
So again, if you're putting your value, your self-worth on the possessions that you have, it's a huge problem that you're creating for yourself.
Where we come from and where we return to is a place where our stuff is unnecessary in order to feel joy and contentment. Whatever came our way as a fetus and as unspoiled child gave us a great sense of fulfillment.
So again, we came with nothing and we will go with nothing. If we are constantly happy with whatever is and whatever we have, then we will be constantly in a state of joy because we have no regrets. We will make the best of what we have right now. We will not be in the future. We will not be in the past, what we read in The Power of Now. We will operate in the now and make the best of whatever is happening in the now. And when we do that, everything in life starts to slowly fall into place.
I used to watch my young children express so much joy playing with a cardboard box or a spool of yarn or some napkins. They could get lost in just watching a fluttering butterfly or a tiny ant on the sidewalk. They were filled with wonder at virtually anything that came into their field of awareness. This is a remnant of our fromness. We were that way too. We should take to heart the advice of the Persian poet Rumi: sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment.
So, that amazement, that aha, we have lost that. I in the gateway voyage, we have something called the silent walk, where we go into altered states of consciousness and people actually walk around in the lawn, etc. Let me tell you, everything starts to light up. Like he's saying over here, You will watch an insect and you will watch it from that highest, my hair is standing right now. You'll watch it from that higher state of consciousness and you will admire the beauty in it. You'll be able to see the flower and you'll see the stems inside the flower, the stigmas inside the flower, the petals, the way the veins are going in the petals. The smells will start to go up. When we are a child, we are so amazed by everything. Where is that amazement gone? Where is that wonderment gone? We have totally lost it. We are not wondering at anything nowadays. And that is what shifts us from a state of being, from that state of, that inner being, that feeling of joy and happiness.
Our obsessiveness about owning more and more and boasting of our possessions is an indication that we've allowed our false self to become the dominant force in our life. When the false self defines us, it means we are defined by something that isn't true. It's a spiritually bankrupt way to run our life. Who we are has nothing to do with things or even our physical self. We need nothing to verify or validate us. We are infinite, individualized expressions of God, period. Things and so called ownership do not verify who we are. We are what we have is ego's false belief, which is encouraged by our culture.
So we must find that happiness, that beauty, that wonderment inside us rather than look for it outside us, which is what the ego makes us do, looking always outside us rather than within us. Okay, so this becomes extremely important. We are at 3:14. I don't think we should take the next part. If anyone has anything to say, please say it. You see, what I am really amazed at, I like to share with you all, is that I never studied the scriptures or actually looked at the Gita, etc. So I'm truly blessed in this period that we are doing so many of the scriptures now, and I find that all the stuff that I've been doing, I've been reading, I've been talking about and experiencing, because the Monroe process is very, very experiential. What I find, what I'm finding is that everything is conjuncting, everything is saying the same thing, which is so beautiful for me. It's not funny. Okay. Would anyone else, anything anyone would like to say?
Yeah, ambition is not a bad thing, Niket, but
Oh.
it's how you take everybody with you and grow.
Exactly.
Ambition, yeah. So just to say ambition is bad is not the right.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm not saying that also. What I'm saying is that being in the present moment, Auntie, and allowing things to move in the way that they need to move, and being holistic in your thinking, being more holistic rather than being selfish, is the way forward. It's spiritual ambition. I won't call it, again, spiritual ambition again is I mean, spiritually, when a person gets spiritually evolved and ego sets in, then also it becomes a big problem. And I have faced it in my life. There was a time when I used to say that if there is any problem anywhere, if I go there, the problem will be sorted out and solved. Okay. Spiritual ego, it was. And actually, it used to happen, let me tell you. But then I got whacked.
Yeah.
I got malaria 5 times in 1 year. And the boss over there said, okay, you think that you can do everything? Whack, 1 whack, 2 whack, 3 whack. Then I understood that we have to go with the flow. We have to allow things to happen.
Yeah.
And becoming ambitious individualistically is not the way forward. If you get what I mean. We've lost Auntie.
No, we are here. I'm here. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I heard you, but I heard you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you see, I'm constantly telling everyone, we want to empower everyone. We don't want people to get stuck. We want us to grow. We are on a journey together. Okay, none of us is above and beyond anyone. If one can do it, the other can also do it. Some may do it better. So we support each other in the entire process of growing, in that entire game of growing and actually expanding our state of consciousness. That's
Right.
the aim.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else? Anything? Okay, so we meet for meditation at 3:45. And please remember, tomorrow we've got John Cottam. Please invite anyone who would like to join the session. He's a great guy. I'm sure we'll have a great time. He has a great sense of humor. So I hope that also comes out in the talk that he's going to give us.
What exactly is the session about tomorrow?
He has developed a system whereby looking at the face of a person, he has developed indicators that you have a liver problem, you have a lung problem, you have a circulatory problem, you have a cardiac problem, whatever. And just by looking at the face, the texture of the skin and certain characteristics or formations which are there in the skin, the hue of the skin, he tells things about.
Okay.
So it's pretty amazing stuff that he's doing actually.
Yeah.
All right. Really amazing. Yeah.
We can have some videos just now.